It's Kris Dixon back again, Dixon Family Catering. Thanks for joining us as always. I appreciate you guys. Today we're making a Poblano Leek Soup. Yes, you heard me right, a Poblano Leek Soup. Okay, so my whole goal was to use ingredients that you can get just about anywhere, and to use those ingredients in different ways to show you that there's many different variations that you can use the same ingredients with. Not even the same ingredients, all right? Because I use a lot of different ingredients, but at the same time, like I said, there are ingredients that you can go to any store and get those ingredients and use those ingredients, all right? So I don't want to use a bunch of ingredients that, you know, you have to go to crazy places to try to find these ingredients. You know, the goal is to give you recipes that you can use at home, that you can spice up, or, you know, create different ingredients at your own place, and that's the whole goal. And you know, not to get too intricate. You know, if you want really intricate recipes or something like that, you know, of course you can go out to your restaurant or wherever and get your intricate recipes there, and you can have your fine dining experience there. So okay, here today I'm going to take garlic, chopped up garlic, and olive oil. Okay, and that's going to be the base of the soup right there. That's going to be the start of the soup. Okay, and the goal is to use the garlic to flavor the olive oil, and you want to use that to, you know, flavor the rest of the ingredients that you put into the pan. So everything that you put in here from now on is going to have that olive oil and that garlic flavor. So okay, so that starts the base of the soup. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start adding our mirepoix. And in this case, the mirepoix that we have is it's like a holy trinity. In Southern cooking, they use peppers, onions, and celery as their mirepoix, and they call it a holy trinity. And back in the day, at one point, they were cutting the vegetables into like a triangle, so that was like, you know, the holy trinity, the triangle, the holy trinity. But you know, in most cooking, the mirepoix is celery, onions, and carrots. But your mirepoix can be whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be, you know, the same three ingredients. The goal is to use ingredients that for one hold up, and for two that have subtle notes of flavor that can be carried throughout the soup, that when you taste it, you be like, ooh, what is that distinct flavor? Or what is that flavor that's in the background? You know, I can taste it, but I can't really get a good feel for what it is. Okay, so the whole goal is to use ingredients that, at one point, the whole goal was to use ingredients that were more mild, you know, that can add a base to your soup, and then you can add other flavors to it, and then you can't really tell that those flavors are in there. But in a soup like this, I want more flavors to come through. That's the goal. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the celery, the peppers, and the onion. All right, to get that, to get more flavor going on. These leeks are like an onion, but they're more of a mild onion. That's why I'm using the red onion, which is one type of onion, and then also using the leek, so you get a contrast in flavor, you get a contrast in onion flavor, and then you also get a contrast in color. Okay. Now with all of these ingredients, I took all of the trimmings and I put it into water and I simmered it. I simmered my ingredients for about 4 hours. So inside of that, there was all of the leek trimmings, the poblano trimmings, the celery trimmings, everything that I cut up, even the cilantro and the garlic, all of the trimmings went in there. And the longer you let your stock simmer, the more flavor you're going to have. All right, so you can let it simmer for 12 hours, and then of course it's going to reduce down depending on how high the fire is. Of course, if you're letting it simmer, it shouldn't be too high. But you always want to make sure you check it, because that water can reduce down some. And if it does, just pour more water in there, or you can use it at that reduced state. And what that does, when you use it at that reduced state, you know, have to add the leeks in. Add the poblanos in. Okay, so when you a touch of the lime juice in there, so you get that. So I don't really want to use chicken stock or something right now. So I want that fresh lime juice flavor to come into it. It's also going to bring out the flavors of all of the other ingredients that are in the pot as well. Okay, and the lime is more mild than the lemon, but it has a sweet flavor. So you get that acidic flavor in there, but at the same time, it's not overpowering everything else that's in the dish, okay? All right, go ahead and add all of these poblanos and leeks in there. And like I was saying, the contrast in onion flavor is coming from using the two different onions, all right, the red onion and the leek, and then at the same time, we have the more contrast in color coming from the yellow pepper. Okay, so I know there's a lot of green ingredients here, so the red onion and the yellow pepper are going to add a contrast in that color, and then at the same time, the red onion and the leek are going to add the contrast in onion flavor, and then of course we have the poblano, which is going to add that mild heat in there. Of course, poblano is mild if you like peppers a lot. If you don't like pepper a lot, it's going to have some heat to it. But again, that lime is going to cut through some of that heat, and then I'm using a cream in this soup as well, so that cream is also going to cut through some of that heat as well. Okay. And also what I'm going to add to it, like I said, is that stock. So all right, you have the contrast in onion flavor with the onion and the leek, then you have the contrast in color, okay? And then to keep that leek flavor popping off, I just added that little bit of that lime juice in there, so you get that moisture and you add a little flavor in there. Or like if you was to add, you can do a white wine if you want to, but if I was to add the white wine, of course, let that reduce down. So of course, you're gonna let your white wine reduce down so you can get a sweetness in the flavor. Okay, so it's not just wine, because wine can be overpowering. So you want it to sweeten the dish. You want it to add wine notes to it. Okay, I'm not going to add it to mine. I just added that lime juice to it, so that lime is going to, help it deglaze the pan. It's also going to help bring sweetness to it and a little acidity. Okay, so it's going to cut through some of the heat, and it's going to add some freshness to it as well. I'm adding cilantro, so that lime is also going to, it's going to mingle with the cilantro. It's going to, be real cohesive with the cilantro and add really good flavor in that regards as well. And then also the cream will cut through the heat as well. So we have all of the contrast and flavors going, and then I have all of the flavor from the stock. Okay, so I use all of these flavors and made a stock out of it. So that's going to also add to the leek flavor. So the leek flavor is going to be really pronounced because of the stock and because of the actual leek itself. And then the onion flavor contrast that we have going on, so it's going to be depth and flavor there. And then the poblanos is going to add this little heatness to it. And I got my stock over here. Give me 1 second. All right, so now this is all sauteed up really well. It's smelling pretty good. Okay, I don't want it to saute up too much to the point where it's it's starting to wilt down. I want it to be kind of earthy and still be like kind of chunky. Okay, because once I add all of the liquid to it, then it's gonna, if it's a real, sorry about that. If I let it saute up too much, then it wilts down too much, and I put the liquid in there, then that's when it's gonna like kind of disintegrate. Okay, so I want it to be kind of chunky. So I only want it to saute a little bit. All the ingredients that are in there, that mirepoix, I want that to saute down so it kind of disintegrates. Okay, but the actual ingredients that I'm calling the soup, the poblanos and the leeks, I want those to be kind of chunky, so I'm not going to saute those up as much. Okay, so we already got the garlic in there, we already got the mirepoix in there, so they already sauteed some. They started to turn brown, which is exactly what I want, so they get that caramelization going on. And then when I added the poblano and the leek, and this is the perfect time to go ahead and add my vegetable stock, okay? Because it's still pretty, still pretty chunky, not wilted down too much. And I got 2 quarts. I'm adding the vegetable stock. I'm gonna say chicken stock. No, it ain't no chicken stock. That's vegetable stock right there. Okay. And then once that comes to a boil, I'm gonna go ahead and add all of my cream. So I have 2 quarts of cream. So it's going to be about 1 gallon of soup, maybe a little more because of the ingredients as well. Okay, so this is a good way to also clear out your refrigerator. Say you have things in your refrigerator you haven't used in a while, starting to go bad, produce, things like that. You can make a really quick soup out of it. You can chop those ingredients up, whatever trimmings you have. You can make a stock out of those trimmings. Saute the ingredients up. add that stock to it. You can deglaze that pan with, your lime, lemon juice, depending on what soup you're making. Okay, if you want it just to be a stock soup, you just add all stock to it, and then maybe add a little cornstarch. That can be your thickener. There's a couple different types of thickeners. You got your cornstarch. You can use cornstarch and water to make a slurry. You can use arrowroot and water to make a slurry. You can use, honestly, you can use flour and water. You can use flour and oil. You can use a traditional roux, which is butter and flour. A lot of roux, you start off in the pan first, and then you add your ingredients to it. But also, you can take that roux at the end of the soup and pour that flour and butter mixture that you heated up on the stove, made into a roux. You can also add that at the end and whisk it in if you wanted to. You can also add flour and oil together into a roux, mix it in a bowl, and add that in at the end of the soup. Whenever it starts to simmer, whenever it starts to boil, cut it down, let it simmer, then slowly add your roux or your slurry, whatever your slurry is, whether it's cornstarch and water, arrowroot and water, whether it's flour and butter mixture in the roux, whether it's flour and oil mixture in the roux. Once it starts to simmer, once it's boiled and then simmering, and then you whisk that in there and let it simmer some more, okay? And then when it actually simmers, that's when it breaks down enough that it actually it breaks down into the soup, and that's what binds it together. All right, that slurry mixture broken down is what binds everything together. Okay, and then you also want to let that cook, simmer for about 15 minutes after you add your slurry, because if it's flour, it definitely will have a flour taste to it. It will have that flour back note to it, so you want to make sure you cook that out. And it also can be, if you're using flour, it can make the soup a little cloudy, and then you really want to let that dissolve into the soup so it's not as cloudy, because if it doesn't dissolve into it while it's cooking, it will stay cloudy like that. Okay, so you really want to be conscious of putting that flour, using the flour as a thickener, because it can make the soup cloudy if you don't cook it out, and you can also taste that flour in there if you don't cook it out, if you don't let that flour dissolve enough to where it's actually a part of the soup and not just you can see it in there. And then okay, so we have we have the stock in there, we have the veggies in there, smells fantastic in there, lime juice. All right, we're just letting that come to a boil. And then, all right, so that was all about the starches, the thickeners, the roux, and the things like that. All right, and even if you wanted to, let's say, like I was saying, if you wanted to use just stock in here, you can use, let's say, a white stock, okay, which is pretty much just like boiled, whatever you have, just boiled it, and like your ingredients, your trimmings, boil it in water, and that's just like a light stock. You can roast whatever you have, roast it down. Say you take all of these ingredients and you roast it, but you want to be careful. Usually talking about bones when you're roasting for a stock, like beef bones, chicken bones. Like chicken bones is where you usually get your white stock from. Beef bones is where you usually get your brown stock from. But at the same time, if you roast your bones enough, if you have like chicken bones, if you roast them enough, they get darker. And then as you put that in water and let that boil, it's naturally going to have a natural darkness to the soup, to the stock, because of how much you roasted the bones. So if you was to roast all of these ingredients and then make it, and then make your stock out of that, it would have a different note to it than it would if you took these ingredients fresh and then put them in your water and let those boil. All right, it would have a different note to it. And then again, let's say you even fried all of your ingredients and then you put that in water. Okay, it would of course have a different note to it as well. Let's say if you grilled all of these ingredients and put them in water, and then that's just to add different character. That's just to get different flavors to it. And that's what some people do to get different flavors in their stocks. Okay, and then also at the same time, if you're using a roux, you can use a dark roux and then add your stock to that dark roux, and bam, you got a dark sauce, or you got a dark stock that you can use as a soup base. That you can use that liquid as a soup base. Or let's say you have a you make a white roux, a blonde roux, and then you add your stock to that, then you're gonna have a whiter, stock and a sauce, and you can use that for your soup base. So it's all about what you really want to get out of your soup. If you want it to be cream based, you can add just cream to it if you want. It's going to be a lot thicker, and of course it's going to cost more money, but it'll be a lot richer at the same time. So I do use some vegetable stock or some type of stock in my soup as well with my cream, just so, you know, for one, you don't have to use all cream, and for two, I feel like it'd be too rich, but it's all up to you. It's whatever your liking is. If you want to be fancy and use only cream, again, you have to be careful because it can burn very easy as well. It can scorch. It'll be thicker, and it'll be very, very rich. But hey, you can do whatever you want to. So I would advise to use some stock in there, whatever stock you want to. You know, of course, you can use a brown stock and cream. It's gonna have that brown, creamy gravy type effect in your soup, or maybe a stew, or whatever you're making. So just some ideas on how to use your ingredients in different variations. All right, and sorry if I'm rambling, but you know, I'm just trying to get as much information in here as I possibly can in a short amount of time. All right, and again, thanks for watching. Hey, how you doing up there? I don't have a cameraman, so hopefully this is a good video. And if not, please give me feedback. I love feedback. You know, I love, you know, critiques, good or bad. You know, it doesn't matter. It makes me a better person. I get stronger from it. So again, appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for being here. And the soup is definitely starting to boil now. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it down and add my cream to it. I got 2 quarts of cream. Like I said before, I'm going to go ahead and add that to it. And then I'm gonna cut it down so that way it's not too hot when I add the cream to it. All right. Man, creamed up. All right, man, it smells really fantastic. I really wish you guys could smell. Smell-o-vision would be fantastic right now. All right. Look, you got those chunks of the poblano and the leek, okay? And again, here, I used 3 leeks here. I used 4 red peppers, about 5 pieces of celery, okay, and about 2 medium-sized peppers. The reason I tell you that is because you want to watch the ratio of ingredients to liquid, because if you have too much liquid in there, not enough ingredients, you're just going to be sipping on a stock that has you know, some extra ingredients in it. So in order to call it not even call it a soup, in order for it to be enjoyable, in order for you to have a bowl full of enjoyable soup, it definitely needs to have some chunks of the goodness in there, the chunks of the vegetables in there. So if you're adding too much liquid, all right, you're gonna be fishing around in your bowl trying to find a lot of the goodness. You're gonna be getting mad, and you know, it just won't be enjoyable. You'll still be able to, you know, like I said, sip on some stock, but it won't be a soup. It won't be what you really want it to be. Okay, so make sure you got a good ratio. Make sure your vegetables are nice and chunky in there. All right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I didn't add any meat in here, and the whole reason I didn't add any meat is, like I said, is just to use ingredients that you have around. You can put whatever meat you want in here. You can put chicken in here if you want to. You could put beef in here, you know, sauteed it ahead of time. And you can do one of 2 ways. If you saute the beef in here, definitely do it first and strain it, because it's gonna have all of that grease in there, okay? And then if you add all of your ingredients in with that grease, I mean, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna have flavor to it, but it's not going to look good. It's going to have pieces of oil all over the place, and it's just not going to look, you know, appealing at all. So definitely saute your meat first and then strain it, and then add it back to the soup. Okay, so that way you won't get a real greasy soup. All right, because you'll have all of that grease from the meat in there. All right. So now I'm gonna turn this back up. Be careful, because once you turn up cream, there is a chance that it can scorch. That's why we added stock in there with it as well. Another reason we added stock is because it had a lot of the leek flavor. A lot of the ingredients that we use, it helps those flavors distribute through the soup. So if we just added the ingredients and then we added water, the water kills flavor, okay? I didn't add any straight water in here. Soup, you don't want to add straight water to it. If you can avoid adding straight water to soup, that's the best thing you can do. You want to add stocks, okay? You want to add wines, you want to add fresh fruit juices and vegetable juices and things like that. No straight water. Water will kill all your flavor in the soup. No water to soup. No water to soup. No water to soup. Don't do it. All right. Forget your some salt over here. Make sure we get that salt up in the soup. And I love adding fresh fennel. I love adding fennel to things. Fennel is a really good flavor. It's a really, especially if you, a lot of people just think of it as being like a flavor in sausage. You know, it's that little piece in the sausage that not too many people like. But we got to stop thinking about it like that. Fennel has a lot of flavor, and it goes a long way, and it does a lot of justice to whatever you're making. Okay. So once this starts to boil, I'm gonna go ahead and add the cornstarch mixture that I have, my slurry. All right, cornstarch and water, which is equal parts water and cornstarch. So 1 tablespoon of water to 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. Okay. Here for a gallon of soup like this, maybe about 4 or 5 tablespoons of each to start off with, and then, you know, let that cook for about 15 minutes, let it simmer, and then see how thick it's gotten. And if it's not enough, then just add 1 or 2 more to as needed, and see where it's at from there. And then also as a garnish for this soup, you know, I like using roasted pepper as well. You know, they're really easy things to do. You can take these ingredients that you can get anywhere, and you can, you know, use your magic on them and turn them into a work of art. You know, you take a regular old pepper and turn it into a roast of art. So the reason I turn it into a work of art, okay, not a roast of art. But anyway, the reason I mention that for the whole reason is because I have that roasted pepper, okay, and I'm going to use that as a garnish, okay. Cilantro, olive oil, and roasted red pepper, okay, pureed together, and that's going to be a garnish for the top of the soup. That's going to add more color to it, and of course, since we have roasted pepper, since we have pepper in the soup already, it's going to, you know, be cohesive and add to that flavor, so it's going to go well together, all right, because it's going to have that pepper tint throughout the soup already in the background, okay. So it's going to, using that roasted pepper puree on top as a garnish, you know, it's going to bring that pepper flavor to the forefront, all right. But because we have so much leek in there, you're still going to be able to have that leek flavor. The leek is all the way through there, from the stock to the actual fresh leek in it itself, so that flavor is going to be there. And then the red onion is also going to add to that oniony leek flavor, all right. So we're not going to lose the leek flavor by putting the roasted red pepper puree on top, all right. So it's going to, what it's going to do is add different layers, all right. So what we have done is added a bunch of layers to the soup. 1, olive oil and the garlic, all right. We made that 1 layer, sauteing those together. So everything we put in after the olive oil and the garlic is going to have that olive oil and garlic flavor in it. So that's the first layer. The next layer was adding the mirepoix, all right. Was adding that trinity, all right. The peppers, the onions, and the celery, all right. So when those sauteed and then they started to caramelize, you know, get brown, and, you know, those sugars started to develop, and also the natural flavors of the vegetables, and, you know, the sugars that they started to, you know, produce from being caramelized, those all mixed together, and that adds another layer. So the first layer, garlic, olive oil. Second layer, the mirepoix, all right. Then that third layer came in when you deglaze the pan, all right, which I didn't deglaze it the right way. You're supposed to deglaze the pan first, all right, and that's the third layer. That adds to the third layer. That's the deglaze part. And then you add all your other vegetables in there, which in this case, poblanos and leeks, all right, and that's another layer right there. So first layer, garlic, olive oil. Second layer, mirepoix. Third layer, deglaze, whatever you use, whether it's your citrus or, you know, your wine. Don't use vinegar. Don't use that. That's, you know, it'd be too strong, you know. So, but you can if you want. If you want to add that crazy note to it, you can do that. But me personally, you know, I would add wine. You know, any type of wine you want to use, red or white. Even though this is a a white sauce here. You know, if you want to add a red wine to it and have a little tint of red, who cares? You know, you can do that, but whatever. So that next layer is the citrus or the wine or whatever you want to use for the deglazing agent. Next layer after that, all of your ingredients, the stars of the soup. Okay, that's your next layer. So by the time your stars of the soup get there, it's already a party. All right, there's already so much flavor going on, and then they get there and it's just like, yeah, everybody, the party is really started now. It's happening real hard. Okay, and that's the best part. And then after that, the next layer of the soup is that stock that I made. Okay, which has all of the ingredients in it. So it's like all of their cousins, all of their friends, all of their relatives, you know what I'm saying? They invited all of the party was so good, they invited all of the relatives to the party. And that's the next layer right there, okay? So we're just adding layer upon layer upon layer. And then we're still adding layers, okay? So that stock is in there, the cream, that's a richness layer right there. That's gonna add that layer of richness to it. And then we're gonna add the cilantro. And then after that, when it's all cooked up and it's, you know, it's thick and it's ready to go and it's in a bowl and it's ready to eat it. Another layer, bam, that roasted red pepper puree. And it's gonna have cilantro and olive oil in there, which there's olive oil in it. I'm gonna add cilantro in it, and then there's pepper in there. So I'm using notes that are already inside the soup to help garnish the soup. So you're gonna get flavor that's already in there, even more on top as a garnish. So it's just all gonna be really cohesive and go together very, very well. That's the whole key. Make everything go together well. We're gonna add contrast and flavor, contrast and texture. Okay, since these mirepoix, the mirepoix at the beginning is going to be more sautéed than the stars of the soup, which is the poblano and leek. They're going to be a softer texture, and because the poblano and the leek haven't been sautéed as much, they're going to have a crunchier, a thicker taste. Not even crunchy because it's going to be cooked off in the soup real well, but it's going to be, you know, it's going to have more depth. It's going to have more of a bite to it. Okay. All right, so it's contrasting colors. All right, the different the red onion and the pepper, and then you're gonna have the roasted red pepper puree, contrasting colors. Okay, so contrasting flavors with the different onions. Okay, that's what you want. Contrasting textures. Okay, that's what you want. And then all the different layers of flavor. Add nothing but contrast, and then you add different textures and different flavors and contrast upon contrast, and all that does is attack your taste buds. Boom, 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 boom. So it's coming from angles. Bang, bang, bang. Your taste buds like, man, it's so good. Why is it so good? That's why it's so good. Okay. Oh yeah, it's nice boiling. Look at me over here talking. Good. We're at a good spot. So I'm gonna go ahead. After you let your slurry sit for a while, the cornstarch falls to the bottom. So just stir it up, okay? Because if you don't, then you're just pouring straight water in there, and the cornstarch will be at the bottom of your dish. Let that come back up to a boil. And then as soon as it starts to boil, I'm gonna turn it down. Turn it down to a simmer. Then I'm gonna add some cilantro to it. And then that's the soup, guys, okay? So you're gonna let it come to a simmer, and then you're gonna let it simmer for about, 10, 15 minutes, see how thick it is. If it's not thick enough, again, as needed, add another dose of the slurry, 1 tablespoon ratio of each, and then the water and cornstarch, okay? And then just go from there, maybe 1 or 2 doses more of that, and then let that cook for another 10 minutes or so. Once it's as thick as you want it to be, like I said, usually these things you want them to be a nappe consistency. So if you go down the back of a spoon, the sauce divides and it holds that division on each side and the line doesn't run, okay? Nappe. right, guys, that's my time. Thanks for everything. Appreciate you. Thanks for watching me. Appreciate you guys being here. You guys mean a lot to me. Really, you do. Remember, if you're not a subscriber already, subscribe to my channel. Get the notifications. I guess every time I drop a video, be one of the first to know. Like I said, I can't say it enough. Thanks for everything. Thanks for watching me. Thanks for working with me. I'm still new to this, so I have a lot more that I have to learn. But hey, I'm learning, and that's the best thing about it. And I'm trying to help you learn as well. So as always, try something new. No matter whatever you do, try something new. Thanks.